Welcome. You're listening to The Pit Lane, a Formula One podcast where we slow things down and chat about everything F1. I am your host, Jordan Wynn, alongside Alden Kaywell. In this episode, we'll be recapping the 2023 United States Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, also giving a little preview of the Mexican Grand Prix. Alden, how are you today?
I'm good, Jordan. It's good to see you again. That was an eventful weekend in a way. But, excited to talk about it and get into the Mexican Grand Prix at the end.
Before we get there, let's touch on some little bit of news over the weekend. Maybe Thursday or Wednesday came out. There are new maximum fine limits for drivers. This has quadrupled. And we're talking about Hamilton crossing the racetrack was kind of the start of this.
Yeah, it's really weird. It came out of nowhere. It doesn't sound like the teams or the drivers were given any heads up or were asked to consult on it at all. What's strange is that both the maximums for not only drivers but also teams, maximum limits that can be imposed. So it's like $1 million in F1 now, which is really high. Euros. Sorry, excuse me. But that just seems to really be targeting certain drivers as you better not step out of line on certain topics or doing certain things or not participating in certain things. And it really just seems like a preemptive sword rattling in a way.
Yeah, the note the FIA sent out said something about role modeling or being a role model. And the way they worded made it sound like Lewis Hamilton was a role model, but not other drivers, although I don't think that's how it was supposed to be intended. I think what they actually meant was, as a Formula One driver, you are a role model, but it kind of read like, Lewis Hamilton, you are a role model, so you are held to a higher standard.
It's, I guess I'm not surprised, but, the FIA and Hamilton, they don't really get along. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe this is all for show. Maybe there's something else going on. It just seems over the top.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think we'll kind of see what happens going forward. I don't think we had any driver fines this weekend.
No.
That I can think of, so nothing crazy happened, but we'll see if fines actually increase or if it's kind of more of a scare tactic.
Right. The FIA doesn't have to fine someone €1 million. It's a choice.
Yeah, it's an option. It's an option.
It's an option.
The fact that it's an option kind of seems a little
right, because
silly.
if they did it to one of the drivers further down the grid who are racing for one of the smaller teams, they don't have that kind of money.
Right.
And anyway.
Yeah, so kind of a silly thing, but something to look out for in the future.
Yeah.
To see if they kind of actually impose some of this stuff. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the actual Grand Prix. The United States Grand Prix. I keep calling it Austin Grand Prix.
At the Circuit of the Americas, which is in Austin, Texas.
Correct. Thank you for the correction. Let's talk about the sprint race briefly. Didn't seem like a whole lot happened. Max ended up winning. Lewis P2, Charles P3. The only other real info here, Carlos started on the soft tire where just about everybody else started on the medium tire.
He did, yeah. That was an odd choice, as it turned out.
Yeah, he had a good start, obviously, with the soft tires, and then fell off massively, but ended up where he started.
Yeah, like first 200 meters were great, and then it was all downhill from there, both literally and figuratively.
Right, exactly. So he kind of ended up staying pat in the end.
Yeah.
But Gasly with the P7, so that was nice for Alpine to see.
Absolutely.
Russell, P8, he actually got demoted with a 5-second post-race penalty.
Do you remember where he was before the penalty? Was he P7 or was he P6?
He was P7,
okay,
I believe. He got demoted because of gaining an advantage.
Yeah.
I believe passing Albon. It might have been over Ocon maybe earlier than that.
Sure.
I can't quite remember. And then Albon tried to catch him at the end with that 5-second, but just missed out by a couple tenths.
Very close. Too bad. I would have liked to see Albon score some points in the sprint race. I don't know if these results are really all that surprising. It kind of, the talent, the cream rises to the top, if you will. Max was never looking He didn't look uncomfortable. It didn't look like he was ever going to lose the sprint race. But yeah, you kind of got to ask yourself, what purpose does the sprint race serve? You know, I know we talked about it for Qatar. It gives options for teams trying to get some points. Right here, if we look at, you know, who's scoring points here, there aren't all that many surprises.
Right.
So if a car goes into, due to the structure of the calendar or the structure of the weekend, if a car goes into Parc Fermé immediately after qualifying for the race on Friday evening, no one can change their setup without taking some form of penalty for later in the weekend.
Yep.
Right. And I think we saw that during the race. We saw both of the Haas cars and both of the Aston Martins. Yeah. We're jumping a little bit ahead, but it just, I don't know. What do we get?
I enjoy. There have been a couple sprint races that have been decent. I think Qatar was good. At least the race was. The sprint race.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I kind of do like about it is that if you have quite the spread in teams, you get a little bit more variation in actual qualifying because it's so soon and you only have one practice session.
Mm-hmm.
As a viewer, I think that gives a little bit more excitement for Sunday because not everybody's setups will be as good because you won't get 3 practice sessions. You only have the one. So that makes things a little bit more interesting, maybe mixes it up a little bit. But I think at the end, it's obviously more financial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's definitely a commercial decision made by F1.
Get more viewers on a Saturday.
100%. And I think to me, I like the idea of a sprint in concept, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
In theory, I like the idea of it. What it seems to just, the outcomes seem to just be future tellings of what's going to happen in the race, barring some change in weather or safety incident.
Yep.
And, we'll talk about where a lot of the drivers ended up from the race itself, but it just, maybe we got to look at some data on that. That'd be something we could do for a future episode. That'd be interesting to see, like, how often do people's results, plus or minus one position, how often are they in the same position?
Right.
But yeah, I understand why they're doing it. It makes a lot of sense from that aspect.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that, definitely. Let's move forward to the race. Mixing qualifying there as well. Max goes from P6, where he qualified on Friday, and I believe overtakes Lando Norris on lap 28 of the Grand Prix and holds the lead from there on. Wins the race. Had a brake problem, it sounded like, throughout the race, but ultimately, seemed like another comfortable win.
He was very vocal about that.
Yes, he was. But gave us, I guess, a little bit radio entertainment. But yeah, ultimately, Tyra was better for him versus Lando, which ultimately got him there. He went medium, hard versus Lando's medium, hard tire selection. So that was Max. Perez, let's say if we're sticking with Red Bull, ended up P4.
Solid weekend for Perez, all things considered.
Yep. Again, his qualifying wasn't great, being in that Red Bull, but he made up for it in the race, got the points he needed to stay ahead of Hamilton. Anything else you want to touch on with Red Bull?
Their livery was not good.
A few stars here and there is one of those fan voted.
This was fan voted.
Yep.
Oh, this is why they shouldn't let the fans vote on the liveries. Better than Miami, I do got to say. I think you were right. Better than Miami.
Yeah, they had a few stars in there. A little bit of red and blue, white, black. But yeah, I don't know. I wish they would maybe just stay away from it. It's not really their race to maybe have a special livery, if that makes sense. They don't really have a connection.
You know what I noticed?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. It's not, right? It makes sense when they go to Japan with their Honda partnership to have a special livery. It would make sense if they were in, say, Austria or the Netherlands or Belgium because of Max. It would make sense.
Mexico.
Right, in Mexico, if for Checo. Those all make sense. if you're in America, it just seems like an over the top pandering to Americans trying to watch the sport. You see, like, I think Daniel Ricciardo kind of started it, at least in my memory. I know that, these special helmets have gone back a long way, but like this goofiness to the helmets, and some of like the get ups. I remember the race suits, Red Bull, when they had partnership with Aston Martin, used to do those Bond outfits for their race suits. They did the cowboy ones a couple years ago back in Austin.
Yep.
And there's been some others by some other teams, and sometimes they're fun, but sometimes it just seems kitschy.
Yeah, it just misses the mark sometimes.
Yes, but it's like pandering to us. I mean, I'm a Formula One fan. I don't need you to try and be American.
Right.
This is the wrong way around.
It seems vice versa.
Right.
But yeah.
All the same.
Yeah.
No.
It's fun when there is a nice one, but I think this one kind of, again, feel it's not to say that they can't do it, but try and find maybe another way.
Yeah. It was nice to see Perez finish. I know he did not finish the race in Qatar. Is that right?
No, he did.
He did. Oh, he didn't finish the
sprint race.
The sprint race. Yes.
Yeah. He got demoted out of the points.
Yeah.
During the race. But yeah, good to see Perez back up to P4 after penalties, and we'll talk about that right now. Mercedes.
Yeah. So Lewis had a great race.
Yes.
Until
he caught up to Max at the end.
Yeah.
He was about a second and a half behind at the finish.
Yep.
Mercedes strategy, they were pandering between, should we do one stop? Should we do two stop? Asked Hamilton if he could go 5 more laps.
They did go back and forth on that during the race. You heard it on the radio. It didn't seem like they were made up their mind entirely. Or was that all for show? Was that all
could have been
smoke and mirrors? Hamilton
felt like he couldn't make it. But that's what I heard on the radio. That's not what he said, but that's what I heard.
Hamilton likes to,
Yeah, we've heard the tire games before.
Yeah, exactly.
But
he had a great race on circuit.
Yeah, on circuit he did. But I think the strategy was off. They kept him out.
They let him down a little bit.
Yeah, his tires massively fell off when he pit.
Yep. He didn't do himself any favors when he locked up into turn 11 kind of during that first stint.
Nope. But yeah, ended up second and a half behind Max. He was catching him big time at the end.
Yeah.
Just couldn't get to him. However, got disqualified.
Ooh.
There is high wear on, I believe, a skid plank. Is that correct?
I think
on
that's
the underfloor?
Yeah. On the underfloor of the car, his skid plate was not deemed to have met regulations as it pertains to measurements of the ride height. Is that correct?
Yeah, the plank itself is allowed X amount of wear. I don't know the exact ranges offhand, and they allow a 10%, negative on that.
Okay.
Plus, I guess, depending how you look at it. And it sounds like the wear was past that threshold.
Beyond that, okay.
And that's a technical directive for every team. Alpine had an issue earlier in the year, it sounded like, but they switched it before the race, so they weren't penalized.
Okay.
So they didn't have the issue. Whereas Mercedes, they claimed that they didn't have, the amount of time because they only had one practice session to get the data. It was a new floor. They, Austin, Texas, bumpier track, but everybody goes by the same directive.
Yep.
So ultimately, Lewis got disqualified. Same goes for Charles.
Yeah, there's so much going on here, right? Like Charles Leclerc with Ferrari also disqualified. He finished fifth, I think, and then was disqualified at the same time as Hamilton after the race. This was many hours after the race, though. Given that this race
was about 8:00
Central Time.
Yeah, Central Time. So
which means it was what?
Later?
Yeah, 4 hours after the race had finished, roughly, give or take, which meant that it would be 6 hours late. 6 hours after 8 p.m., maybe 2 in the morning in UK.
Yeah, I think
3 a.m. in the morning in Central Europe. For the majority of the fan base, they would have been asleep, waking up to the news that their favorite driver or their favorite team did not have the same penalties or points that they did when they went to sleep.
Right.
I feel bad for Lewis. I feel bad for Charles Leclerc. Ultimately, the rules are the rules. They're disqualified because they didn't fall into the rules. But where do you lay the blame? I think I read that only 4 cars were tested.
Yes.
Each of the cars on the podium plus the pole sitter.
Correct. However, supposedly they claim it's random, but I also read that they kind of are able to see the cars on track to see who's kind of lower. Maybe so
they may have had their really eyes on someone. Okay,
but maybe if it's close, maybe they just pick one car between them. But yeah, I think they.
And would this have been the case at any other circuit?
Well, they do it at all the circuits,
but Austin was built on a swamp,
right?
So
the land shifts. It rains there. It gets excessive heat.
The racetrack honestly looked like a Minneapolis city street in March.
Cracks. They did resurface part of it, I think.
It doesn't help, recently. As who we know.
No, they've done it a few times.
It's just wild that the circuit can. I don't know if it's wild. I like the idea that a circuit is not pristine.
Yes.
That the drivers have to drive around something less than ideal. You know, we talk about having to drive in the rain. We talk about having to drive on different surfaces. You know, like the pavement in Bahrain is going to be different than the pavement in a street circuit like Baku or Monaco, which is going to be different than the circuit in, Brazil at Sao Paulo. You know, that's those variables from circuit to circuit, weekend to weekend make sense. I would feel as a driver, if this happened to me, hard done specifically at this circuit, that not everyone would have been tested.
Yeah.
And specifically that the podium sitters plus the pole sitter were the ones just deemed to have required a review of this particular rule.
Yeah, I think if you are going to test, supposedly a random selection for this specific thing, I don't know I assume they test other things as well.
Mm-hmm. We know they do the fuel samples.
Yes, but they do everybody.
Right.
I feel like if you're going to do something like this, they might have to, you go down the list. Who scored points? Who is it going to matter most to potentially? Right. And I know you can say, every position matters, because if you end up tied in points, who has the highest finishing position, or tiebreakers and stuff. But I think you might have to start doing everybody in the points at the very least, and then say, this person should be disqualified. Then you go, who would have moved up? Then you should test them and maybe do that going forward.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, all the cars, they would have the money, staff, and time to scrutinize every single car.
Right. But they don't do that.
We know that that's not feasible. But I guess if you're going to, if you're P11 and someone's floor has the most minute of cracks and they're disqualified for whatever reason, and your car is blatantly out of line with the rules, but you weren't scrutinized, is that fair? No,
it's not, because your car's not legal.
Right.
And you can even think back to, what year was that? 2021. Hamilton's rear wing flex.
Yeah.
Was like 0.04 or 0.4 millimeters or something, like nothing. Almost nothing.
Almost negligible.
But it was over the limit.
Yeah.
So
and the rules are the rules.
And the rules are the rules.
And they all agreed to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So did they? I don't know if they tested it.
Did make for the best race in recent memory.
It did. But
that weekend was wild.
That was absolutely insane. But let's move on.
Yes. Yeah.
George Russell. We didn't talk about him yet.
That's okay. We don't need to. No, I'm just kidding.
Ended up P5.
Yeah.
Poor start. Kind of dropped down, I think, to 8th position, and then had to work his way back.
He just wasn't on in the race, was he?
Nope. Never really in contention all weekend.
Did both of the Mercedes have new parts, or was it just Hamilton?
I thought it was just Hamilton.
Okay.
With the new floor.
Interesting. We'll see if that changes in Mexico.
Yeah.
Or in the future races, if and when they can get Russell on the same equipment.
Yep. But Russell struggled kind of all weekend. Didn't really hear too much about him. Otherwise, P5.
McLaren, Lando finished P2 after the disqualification of Hamilton. He had a great weekend.
Yep. He got a great start.
Yep.
Took the lead after turn 1. Stayed there pretty much up until... stayed there until Max took over. Lap 28. I was kind of hoping they'd pit him sooner. Maybe right when Max passed him to try and get an undercut.
Yeah.
Overcut. Undercut. But yeah, didn't do that. They stayed out 3 more laps, lost another 6-7 seconds.
Yeah.
So that
didn't work out for him.
Nope, didn't really pay off in the end. Got passed by Lewis later on in the race, but I guess that didn't really matter too much. But yeah, I think they just still have higher tire wear than
You got a fast car.
Yeah. Yeah, not as fast as in Qatar, but I'm sure it has to do with, track layouts and stuff. A lot of high speed in Qatar, high speed corners versus Austin has more of a mixture.
A lot of points for Lando this weekend.
But yeah, it was a good weekend for him.
But Piastri did not finish the race due to damage on his car. I think he came in the lap 9, 10.
Yeah,
11.
lap 10. It seems like he collision with Ocon coming back down the hill.
Ooh.
Lap 1, pretty big hit on Ocon. Ocon had big side pod damage. That took him out ultimately as well. He dropped like a stone after that.
He did.
Piastri didn't drop as quickly, but definitely dropped ultimately. Decided to retire the car, obviously. So not a great weekend for him. I don't even think he got points this weekend. I don't think.
Ocon?
Yeah. No, sorry, Piastri. I don't think Piastri got any points this weekend.
He did not either.
Tough weekend for him. But he had contact both days. I think he had contact with Sainz in the sprint race as well. So, yeah, he had damage both days. Kind of fell both races. DNF'd ultimately.
If you want points,
Sunday.
You got to finish the race without hitting someone.
That's how it works.
It is how it works.
Well, you can hit somebody and maybe still make it, but doesn't help you.
Not advisable.
No.
Ferrari quietly had a solid haul of points this weekend. P3 for Sainz, P5 for Leclerc until he was disqualified. But between the P3 for Sainz and then the double points finish in the sprint race,
Good haul.
Keeps McLaren
at bay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think McLaren probably gained negligible amount of points, not enough to really hype them up, maybe to get to P3. Obviously, they still can with the points remaining with some luck, but I think that push for P3 will come a little bit short this year.
It would require some
great finishes and very poor performances from Ferrari.
Or just another Ferrari weekend.
Or just, which we can kind of talk about with Leclerc. I know we talked about with the DNF.
Yeah.
Because of the disqualification.
But that's not the whole story, is it?
No. They opted for a one stop.
On Leclerc?
On Leclerc. They split strategies. Sainz was on a 2-stop. Leclerc on the 1-stop. Sounded like they thought it was 50-50 based on strategies, even though they kind of saw Carlos on the soft tires on the sprint race, and he dropped like a stone after his good start. Not sure why they decided to do a 1-stop with Charles, but ultimately that didn't pay off, and he was not happy on the radio either during the race, as he was just getting
he demanded a debrief.
Yeah. He at least, once his hard tires kind of got back or past the hard greening stage, he held on a little bit, but there was no one really in range of him at that point anymore. So there wasn't any concern. I think at that time, Perez was pretty far behind him and wasn't really catching him too quickly. So yeah,
I think at the end it was a little bit closer.
Yeah,
but like in the last corner, I seem to remember Perez not being too far off.
Yeah, but ultimately couldn't get to him.
No,
but yeah, ultimately disqualified Leclerc. Another Ferrari strategy blunder. Not happy about that, but got disqualified. So in the end, didn't really matter a whole lot other than confidence maybe within the team again.
Alpine, Gasly finished P6.
Yeah, solid day for him. Solid weekend for him. Double points for him, one on the sprint race and the race on Sunday.
Yep. And then we discussed Ocon's damage. After his contact with Piastri, he did not finish the race. I don't even know if he made, 5, 6 laps?
I don't think he got that far. I just remember seeing him drop, and it was probably lap 2 or 3. They brought him in and saw all the side pod damage. He had holes in it, so nothing you can really do at that point.
Then both Aston Martin started from the pit on the race day?
Yeah, so interesting here. Alonso got, I believe, a new floor as well.
He reverted to the old floor after the new floor that they gave both him and Stroll on Friday's practice session didn't pan out.
Yes, and they also I read that they miscalculated something with the brake duct, so they were overheating big time for practice.
You could see it on the TV.
And Stroll didn't practice.
He had 5 laps?
Yeah, maybe.
Total?
Yeah. Not good. Like you said, both started on the pit lane. They both had actually really good recovery drives during the race.
Yes.
Alonso, I think, was up to P8. Stroll was up to P9 at one point. And then Alonso's suspension.
That's what he said. He said on the radio it was suspension, but then the team said, we don't see anything on the suspension. But then, 2 or 3 laps later, he retired the car.
Yeah, he was slowly, dropping down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was actually brake issue or suspension issue, but it sounded like he was having problems throughout the weekend, and it ultimately ended his race on Sunday.
Not a good weekend for Aston Martin from Friday or Saturday or the end results of Sunday.
No, but it was good. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the only good thing you would say about their weekend would be that during the race, on track, on Sunday, they looked good.
Yeah, they look good. They look competent. They kind of look like they were getting out of their hole, but ultimately not to be. Stroll, though, got his first points finish, I believe, since Spa.
Yeah, since the summer break.
Before the summer break.
Yeah.
So good for him. Hopefully gets him out of that rut.
Yeah.
Give him some confidence moving forward.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll be good for him. Obviously he was kind of headlining the news at Qatar.
Yeah.
With what's going on with him.
Right.
But yeah, good for him. AlphaTauri.
Ricardo, first weekend back since Zandvoort. He ended up having some damage to his car and retired.
Didn't retire.
Oh, sorry. He did not retire.
No.
Oh, but he ended up P15.
Yeah,
which was last.
Yeah, no pace. At one point, he was directly behind Yuki. Lap 1, I remember him being right behind him, and then all of a sudden, nothing. I didn't realize until after the race that he had damage, and he had parts stuck in his brakes or something like that, so he had brake damage as well, his front left. So, yeah, kind of ruined his strategies throughout the day. Obviously, damage doesn't help him, slows him down quite a bit.
Nice to have him back, but too bad.
Yeah. It's not great for his second comeback.
But Yuki not only finished P8 after the disqualifications for Leclerc and Hamilton, but also finished with the fastest lap.
Yes.
For a grand total of
5
points.
It's a huge haul. I think that doubles their points on the year to a whopping 10.
He overtakes Liam Lawson for...
He was ahead of Lawson.
Was he?
Yes, he had 3 points.
Okay, and Lawson had 2. Wow. So he's really building that gap to a driver who's no longer there, quote unquote.
But it gets him closer to Haas.
Yes.
2 points behind Haas now. But the fact that Yuki had a gap big enough to pit late ahead of, I believe it was...
Albon?
Albon, yeah. To get a pair of softs on with 2 laps to go and then go for the fastest lap is kind of a big deal for them, I think. That shows they had actually pretty good pace in the car.
And a good strategy.
Yeah. Yep. And obviously, I think if Ricardo didn't carry damage, he could have been right behind him and maybe gotten a double. I mean, would have been a double points finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, great race for Yuki in the end.
Can we talk about Haas and Alfa Romeo first?
Sure.
Yeah, so Haas, both cars started from the pit lane. They had a new package this weekend along with a special livery. Special livery wasn't that bad on this car.
No.
Just livery chat. We'll move on, but that was not bad this year. We talked about it last weekend. We were excited. We talked about it on Thursday.
Yep. No, it looked good.
Looked good.
More stars and stripes on the car.
They should just do that all the time.
Something I saw after the race is that they actually had other... Was that MoneyGram, I think is their sponsor?
Yeah.
The big ones. On the side pod, it had stars all inside of it.
Oh.
A bunch of stars there.
I didn't see that.
You couldn't really tell unless you had a close-up shot of it. And it was kind of shiny, kind of outlined.
Ooh.
It was hard to tell. Yeah, it was kind of hard to tell, but it's a nice little touch.
Interesting. I'll have to go look at some of the still photos.
Yeah, I'm going to assume they had 50 in there. I didn't count them, but it looked like a lot.
That would be hard to count while the car's passing by, but that would be a nice touch.
Correct. Look good. But yeah, ultimately, not a great weekend.
Yeah, ultimately, the livery does not dictate the end result of your race. They did not score any points.
No. They got out of Parc Fermé because they realized they need to change their wing levels, both front and rear. So they got out of Parc Fermé, started pit lane. Obviously, new package, so they're not really sure what they're coming out with until they get it on board during the season. So, yeah, had to take big penalties there.
Let's hope they can tee through that next weekend and through the last few races of the year and end up with a faster car. Magnussen and Hülkenberg deserve more points.
Yeah, especially how Hülkenberg's been driving this year.
Yeah, they've been Hülkenberg specifically has been qualifying very well, but every once in a while, one of them will just have like a
Man.
mega lap and just like come out of nowhere.
Yeah. You saw that with Magnussen last year. He took pole.
Yeah. Oh yeah, in Brazil.
Brazil. He took pole in Brazil out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Alfa Romeo, kind of a same story as Haas. P12 for Bottas, P13 for Zhou. I think that those finishing positions probably don't truly reflect the state of the car. There is some gifts and some folks who normally or may have finished above them, not finishing: Piastri, Ocon, Leclerc, Hamilton, but
Couple DNFs.
couple DNFs. Now,
Alonso.
yeah.
Ocon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Alonso. Now, the main event,
Williams. So let's low key play this. Albon P9.
Yeah,
Albon
P9.
P9.
Yeah, same as his sprint race finish.
Yeah, it was so consistent for him. Got 2 points for William. That's big.
Big points.
If I had a, better preview for this coming up, I wish I had.
Yeah, where's the soundboard? Frank,
I know.
you didn't finish the
I
soundboard.
need an American thing here, but don't have anything but Logan Sargent. First points
go.
in what? 3 decades for
Let's
America?
go. Let's go.
Can we say that? Is that allowed here? 93, I think, was Andretti.
The fix was in. The fix was in. The Europeans tried to stop the Americans from getting points for eons.
They almost did it.
They almost got us. But not this time.
Not this time. With DNFs, DSQs, and everything else, Logan Sargent is another name on the F1 wall.
Thank you. It's rather conspiratorial that it has happened at none other than Austin, which is in America.
At Circuit of the Americas.
Conspiracy.
At the United States Grand Prix.
I think if they really wanted to fix a race, they would have just given him points in Miami.
Since that's, he's a lot closer to his home.
Right.
But we'll take it.
Right. We
Logan
know for
Sargent.
sure it'll be a fix if he scores points in Las Vegas, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. Although I think that track's going to suit them really well with huge straights.
All right, so you're saying...
I'm saying Albon, P6.
Oh.
Sargent, maybe on the fringes.
What?
Yeah.
That's a bold prediction.
Bold early prediction about a month out. But we'll get to that.
On a circuit we've never seen.
Exactly, on a street track.
Okay. Yeah, but that was great. Great for Williams. They also had a cool livery this weekend.
Surprising one. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. We specifically were talking last time about flags on cars and how cool they look, especially the tricolors of Europe. We were talking about the Alfa Romeo livery from Monza earlier this year and how awesome that looked.
We saw a German flag on a Ferrari.
Correct. This didn't. We promise the livery chat will not be as heavy next time, but that was striking and not over the top.
No, it looked good. It
Yeah.
was right underneath the Duracell battery, which is kind of funny. However, it was American flag on both sides. Kind of tear away, but it looked really good.
Yeah.
It looked really clean. Wasn't over the top. It looked good. It looked
Wasn't
really good.
flamboyant, wasn't like neon. It just worked.
Yeah. Yep. It was about the same color tone as their blue as it is, so it looked good.
Yeah. Overall, that was a decent weekend. I think a lot of the action occurred off track,
Yep.
especially with the disqualifications and some of the, all of a sudden you're looking at the grid and you got 4 cars sitting in the pit lane.
Yep.
It's not a good look, but
Yep. I did think qualifying was interesting, but just because of the little shakeup with Max being so far down.
Yeah.
So far as in P6, but other than that, no real surprises, I don't think.
you know what we haven't had a lot of this year
What's that?
is penalties for cars taking additional parts. Usually it's this time of year where like the engine penalties, the gearboxes, this cost cap has really changed the mentality, perhaps of drivers, and teams and how they're. I know there's a few more races to go, so maybe we'll see some penalties in Brazil or Las Vegas, but it's usually around this time where we start seeing some pretty hefty penalties for teams who have taken 1, 2, 3, 4 extra parts over the allocation for whatever that they're replacing. So
I think there was a lot of it early on, as in parts issues. I can't remember. I think Alonso took a couple. I don't think they were PUs, but
Okay.
other things, maybe recovery energy units or something. I remember, but no penalties or anything yet. But yeah, they might be coming later. But
Definitely was something that we were seeing more of in 17, 18, 19, 20.
part of it, though, I think is, at least with the PUs, is that they're only allowed to do reliability upgrades
Sure.
now.
So they're not
engine
pushing
freeze.
the envelope.
Right.
Yeah.
With the reliability, they're only allowed to do that, so they can't. Yeah, like you're saying, they can't.
So any improvement is actually literally making the engine better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Supposedly.
Yeah, I think that's still, is that till
Yeah,
20,
yeah, yeah.
25 or 26?
Yeah.
Which is probably good, unless you're Alpine, because your engine's the slowest in the grid. However, this is where we're at. But yeah, that's another interesting note.
Any other weekend bits?
I don't have too much, I don't think.
I remember a year ago, we had the infamous grid walk interview with Megan Thee Stallion.
I don't think I remember that.
I don't know if they did anything happen this weekend, so I missed that part of the event. So
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
okay,
So.
we're not the ones to ask.
No, not our cup of tea.
No. Did any positions change in the drivers' championship or the constructors' championship after the weekend?
I think Lando passed somebody this weekend.
Okay,
If we want to look that up quickly.
I will.
I know McLaren passed Aston Martin, and they're up to P4
before.
in the standings. Other than that, I think constructors have stayed the same. The big thing is AlphaTauri moved up, or points wise, is catching up to Haas. I think they're only 2 behind them now, 12 to 10, and then I think that puts them 6 or 7 behind Alfa Romeo, with 4 races to go. So kind of a tight race for the bottom 4. Although I think Williams is kind of pulling away there, so they're probably safe.
Yeah, 10, 12, 6, 26.
Okay, so yeah, so probably bottom 3 maybe potential.
Yeah.
For some action there. But yeah, otherwise I think Red Bull's on top still. Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Aston, Alpine.
Yeah, Ferrari closed the gap on Mercedes by 6 points.
How tight's that race?
Mercedes at 344, Ferrari at 322.
So relatively close,
Yep.
depending on tracks here.
And McLaren actually lost ground to Ferrari by 1 point.
Oh.
According
Probably the sprint race, probably.
Yeah. Aston Martin did score some points this weekend. Not enough.
But
to keep McLaren at bay.
Yeah, they'll be safe in P5.
Yeah.
Obviously, not a great, I mean, still a good year for them overall, but
Yeah.
hard when you're a P2 for quite some time, and all of a sudden all the upgrades you bring almost don't work.
Yeah.
It's tough.
That's tough.
I think that's probably it for the Austin Grand Prix then. Or sorry, again, United States
United
Grand
States
Prix
Grand Prix
at Circuit of the Americas in Austin,
Texas.
Got it. But
yeah.
move on to preview Mexico here.
Yeah, let's talk briefly about Mexico.
So Mexican Grand Prix is this weekend coming up. We have, obviously, it's Checo's home race.
No sprint race.
No sprint race. Should be another interesting one. I think setups will be good. Low downforce.
Very low
big
downforce.
straights.
Yep. The altitude in Mexico City is such that the air is thinner, so there's a lot less downforce being applied to the cars while they're moving through the air.
Yep. I feel like Mercedes struggles there, but I think it's usually because they have to turn their engines down, and that's historically.
Yep.
Maybe not past couple of years. I can't quite remember, but definitely before that they were big time. I remember it not being their track solely because having to turn on their engines, and that doesn't bode well on a power circuit. Whereas, the Honda engines have been good.
Yep.
Ferrari's been good. So should be interesting to see there. Low downforce, I think, will be good for anybody, Williams.
Yeah, the Williams should be flying. Wonder if that could impact them in the corners, though. That last sector could be hard for them.
High speed S's.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it'd be a surprise if Max didn't win. Hopefully Checo has a strong finishes well, gets a podium at Mexico, if not a win. There's been some rumors that he might be out of Red Bull and or out of F1 entirely at the end of the season.
Although the team still denies, at least Horner has come out kind of slow played it. Like, no, we haven't said.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've
said that before with Gasly and Albon.
So can't really trust a whole lot what Red Bull says word of mouth, but it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully Checo can hang on for another year.
Absolutely.
At least get through his contract one way or another. His confidence obviously isn't super high right now, but hopefully fans can give him a nice push like they did in Austin.
Yep. Yeah.
They were out there big
Huge.
time. They booed Max. They podium.
Well, maybe we would do.
Maybe. But yes, hopefully fans, I can't remember who said it, but sounds like you got extra horsepower.
Yeah, 10 extra horsepower just from the fans. That has to be a Hamilton quote.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah. Anything special for the Mexican Grand Prix? I don't think so.
I haven't seen any news or anything. No liveries, I saw Checo's special helmet.
Oh, yeah, that looked cool.
Yeah.
It was a little bit busy, but it looked cool.
Yeah, it was good. It's good, and I think it says, like, what did it say? Something inspirational on the back. You know, like keep your head up or something to that effect. That's not what it was, but something like that.
And this is, I like that Formula One tends to, not always, but tries to visit Mexico around the end of October for the Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
That is thematically, it's always really cool to see the atmosphere and that confluence of the culture and the Formula One and how that looks on screen. It's always really cool.
It's always fun. A lot of pastels, black and whites. Always looks good.
Yep.
It's a lot of fun. It's always a party down there.
It is.
Especially with that stadium section.
Oh, it'd be fun to be there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Be hot. But fun. Definitely fun. Yeah, I don't think I heard anything else about this weekend. Nothing crazy.
Same. Yeah.
Well, guess this has been your host, Jordan Wynn Alden K. Will, and we'll see you for the next episode of The Pit Lane. Thanks.
See you, Jordan.
Talk to you next time.